Hello and welcome to World Talks. I'm your host, Sasha Farbach. Now, in the aftermath of the Istanbul peace talks, questions remain about the sincerity and scope of the proposed ceasefire, the humanitarian challenges along the front lines, and the broader implications of recent military developments. Now, with prisoner exchanges and technological shifts in warfare at play, Ukraine faces difficult decisions in its pursuit of peace. Now, we'll explore these complex issues with our guest here in the studio, Kira Rudik, Ukrainian MP and representative of the Voice Party. Welcome to TVP once again.
Hello, Sasha, and thank you so much for having me here.
So Istanbul 2, it lasted close to not even 2 hours. How do you interpret it? Is this a success moving forward? What's your assessment of these talks?
If we talk about the result, then the prisoner swap and exchange is very worthy for Ukraine. So even if that was the only goal and the only result, that would already mean a lot for us, because human's life is something that democracy values the most. And this is why we will be so happy that the families will have their members back home. However, if you call it peace talk, I wouldn't give it a lot of thought or a lot of chances, because right now we haven't seen any single fact that would prove that Russia is ready for peace. And if you think about it, before President Trump, nobody ever talked about this, like that Russia wants peace, because it's very logical that if the aggressor wants peace, he would generally stop fighting, pull their troops. That would be the end of the war, right? So right now, it's basically a back and forth in attempt to persuade President Trump who doesn't want peace. And from our side, Ukraine has done everything by the book, right? We proposed ceasefire for 30 days. We have voted in the parliament for the rare minerals deal that President Trump wanted. And then, though President Zelensky said he would never talk to Putin, when there was a chance for a meeting in Istanbul, President Zelensky went there. So we are waiting basically for the United States to start putting pressure on Russia, because they have put a good amount of pressure onto Ukraine.
You mentioned putting pressure on Russia by the United States. This is something in play. I want to ask your opinion here, because at this point, some while ago, Trump has sort of hinted that he's considering tougher sanctions against Russia. And even Mike Johnson recently, I think in the last sort of 24 hours, has also said that he supports sanctions against Russia. Is this the way that we get Russia finally to some kind of ceasefire here? Is sanctions part of that? Is that necessary here?
It's absolutely necessary, and I'm honestly surprised and glad that Mike Johnson has said this. We don't know if Trump's administration will actually go ahead with this, or is this just like a pressure point? But if there would be sanctions on Russia, that would mean again and again one simple thing: Russia would have less resources to continue the war, to purchase weapons, and to pay its soldiers. So for us, of course, it's a part of a systematic approach that we have been talking about in going towards peace. Let's see how that goes. We need to look at the actions, not at the words, but these words we like.
Mm-hmm. But speaking also on actions, I mean, we've seen, obviously, Russia commit terrible atrocities, continue to strike civilian targets. But also, I think something that's being very much talked about is this whole spiderweb drone strike. Daring, really, I think, what is the key word that we keep hearing. Before we look at that, do you think that that kind of action at this point in time, did that have any impact on the mood and success of Istanbul?
Of course, Russia wouldn't be happy about 30% of their fighter bombers being destroyed. However, it's not that situation beforehand was very different and that we have stopped something significant. No, exactly during these talks, there was a massive attack on Kyiv last week. I think, Sasha, it was the most audacious attack on Kyiv for really a while. So they have attacked peaceful cities, they have killed people, and we are attacking their military objects. And I think this operation will go down in history. And there is not a person in the world who may say that we were not in our right of doing so, and that would say something negative about that. Because really, even if you don't like Ukraine, even if you think that we should have done something different, you need to acknowledge that now Russia has got less flights and less planes and less ability to attack not only Ukraine but any other country. So I think quietly or loudly, everyone is happy about it.
Mm-hmm. And you spoke about history, and I think this reminds me actually of a historical moment way back, 1667, a Dutch raid against the English with similar overtones, also ended up with more, let's say, willingness by the English at that time to make peace. Do you think that's going to have this sort of impact? I mean, Istanbul was short, but I think ultimately, strategically, I mean, this has got to affect the Russian psyche.
It will, especially if there would be additional sanctions, and especially if President Trump will move ahead with what he promised as peace through strength. But again, for us, even if there would be less attacks on civilian infrastructure, and Sasha, let me tell you about how it goes in Kyiv. So Russian MiG goes up, we get air raid alert, and for half of the day, everything stops because you have to go down to the bomb shelter. Kids have to go to the bomb shelters in schools and kindergartens, and everybody's sitting and waiting until a Russian airplane will stop flying because it has the missiles that can attack like cities in minutes. If right now there will be less of that, we will be already very happy. But if that pushes Russia towards peace, additional good thing.
Mm-hmm. And also, I think just the way that it's come about, right? This has taken a long time to plan. The innovation here is very much, I mean, not just important for this particular conflict, but you probably have many nations at this point looking at this and really looking at it as an example, right? I mean, it's been quite an achievement.
As a Ukrainian, of course, I'm super proud because this is like really 007 type of the operation. But also it's again showing you that in a situation when it's David versus Goliath, this is like only way you can go, right? We understand that we cannot overpower Russia with more people or more weapons. But what we can do, we can be smarter, more technological, more brave. So this is like another way of course cooperation when we do something that no one expected, that everybody said like really it's daring. And we will see how, again, it changes the future warfare. Because what I'm very worried is that Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, they are learning from the war really quickly. And we need our allies from NATO to learn that as well. Because the next wars, the next military operations, they will be more like the spider web that was conducted and less like, many planes bombarding some terrorists somewhere. And we hope that the interaction between our countries will help our allies to become more technological as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think time and time again we've seen how the whole battleground in Ukraine has become very much this very much testing ground for drone warfare, right? And this you show it time and time again. I think that's a really interesting story here. But at the same time, as you said, this has set a certain precedent to a certain extent. If this will impact peace talks, we'll have to see. But going back into the peace negotiations, also Erdogan had sort of hinted at potential face-to-face. I mean, we still haven't had that between Zelensky and Putin. Is this now more likely, less likely? Do you see this as something that could happen in near future for any kind of negotiations?
So I would say the question remains like, what is the goal of this meeting, right? Mm-hmm. Russians already publicized their statements like what they want from Ukraine. I don't think any of that seems to be acceptable. They want us to move back from our territories because they added them to their constitutions, and they want us to be demilitarized, like all the requirements why Russia said that they have started the war. So if that would be a meeting for President Zelensky and Putin to exchange the visions and the positions that we have all known for a while, and that it's not something that we can accept at any point, then it doesn't make any sense and doesn't have any sense. If that is something where we think that there could be some result, and I don't see what it can be right now, again, like once Russia doesn't change their position. Additional point that is very important for all of us is that Russia has kidnapped a huge amount of Ukrainian children. And it's a pain that we live with every single day because children are being kidnapped from their families, they're growing somewhere, and there is no proper way to returning them. So if the negotiations or meetings can return some of those children or all of those children home, that would be still a very good reason to meet for presidents, for prime ministers, for whoever. But again, let's see. For us, again, it's very important to bring back as many Ukrainians home as possible.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this was talked about during Istanbul or something. Do you think that's meaningful? Is that sincerity on the part of Russia?
Oh no, they made some statements that they didn't kidnap children, and they said like something about European grandmothers, like some weird things that they say. But it's so painful. Can you imagine if families whose children has been kidnapped looking at this and like watching this? So again, we need to be concentrated on our side, and we were very skeptical that Russia will do the prisoner swap, but they have done it. They have gone ahead with that. So we will do our part, and even if there is the slightest chance of returning people home, we have to take it right.
Mm-hmm. And also, I mean, this is a big question, but obviously, I mean, looking at this war, we have these talks, we have meetings, it goes back and forth. We define what a ceasefire is. We're slowly meeting here time and time again. Maybe a tough question to ask you, Kira, but what do you think is next here? What's the best way forward here? How do you see this play out? Are we getting closer to some sort of significance in a ceasefire? Are we moving away from it? How do you assess the next step now?
So again, Ukraine has agreed to a ceasefire, to any kinds of attempts to figure out a way. Right now, the ball is in Russia's court. What I see is the best or very potential move forward is for the United States to stop being embarrassed on the global scene and to go ahead with what they have promised. I don't think President Trump likes how he looks right now. Again, to everyone who is seeing how Putin treats him. So putting additional pressure to Russia and providing additional weapons to Ukraine would really tip the scales and allow Russia to be more worried and question their ability to go ahead with the war. This is something that really can bring at least ceasefire for a longer time when they will have no means and really incentives not to go ahead. This is, again, what we have been telling the world since the day one. Because, again, Sasha, we know we have been in war with Russia since 2014. We know what it gets to stop Russia. And we have proven, not by illusions or ideas, but by facts. Like, you can only talk to Russia from the point of strength. If you hit their ships in the Black Sea, this is the only way to keep them away from your ports. If you hit their planes, this is the only way to keep their planes out of Ukraine. So we hope that world right now sees what we see and understands that what we say is not something that we made up, but it's really true facts that have the confirmations for the last couple of years.
Right. So as you said, keeping pressure on the Russians, and hopefully with United States support there with sanctions. We'll see how that plays out. Kira Rudik, always a pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much, Sasha.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay tuned right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.